Alright, what's up guys? So in this episode, hopefully we will be getting the Impreza running. So if you guys watched the last episode, I'll link it up right there. I got the engine torn apart, put back together, well, not completely torn apart, I guess, refreshed, repainted, everything got put back together. Matt and I actually got it back in the car, which was right at the end of that episode. That episode ended up cutting off kind of abruptly because we ran into a bunch of problems after that. The shifter wasn't actually shifting, it was actually stuck. So there was a whole bunch of issues. That's why I kind of just cut the video off there, because we didn't make any more progress after that. But today, I'm going to show you guys what I did. I actually got a ton of work done off camera, which I was going to film, but I will explain why I didn't film right now. So, if you take a look, engine is in, and everything is pretty much plumbed and in its place. I'll go through it more detailed in a second. But the reason why I didn't time-lapse or film any of this progress is because this has been multiple days of getting everything together and fitting right and plumbed. So the reason why it's been multiple days is because since that I've had 3 different Imprezas taken apart, taking the powertrain stuff from one, trying to find some more body-ish type stuff from this one, and also having my white one back at home. I've had a ton of parts just all over the place, and there's been a lot of pieces that I either need to order because I can't find it, or they were junk, or I tried to put one certain thing on, didn't get the right part, or can't find the part, so I had to order it. So there's been a lot of that happening when I'll be here. Like, there was one day I was doing the fuel filter setup. I was trying to finish the fuel lines, didn't have enough fuel line. Also, at the same time, the fuel line coming off of this is one size rubber hose, and what it needed to be was a smaller size, so I needed to buy an adapter. There was a couple other things. What was it? Power steering, had to make a new bracket, so that took a lot of time. The coolant overflow tank that I bought, that was a nice OEM one, hit the timing cover, didn't fit, so I had to go and order a aftermarket Chase Bays universal one. The wiring for the alternator I just finished last time I was here, I extended it. But there's been a ton of small things that kept me from finishing a portion of whatever I was doing. So and then intake, couldn't find the clamp for right here, had to buy a new clamp. Got the new clamp, ordered a new air filter, ended up ordering the wrong one. I got one with a 4-inch inlet instead of the 3-inch inlet that I needed. So there's been it's pretty much every single time I've been here, I haven't been able to successfully check off one portion of what I was doing, because I always ran into a random issue that I either needed to get a part from home, or get a part off the white car, or most of it was just ordering parts. So I finally gotten to this point that I'm at now, which is pretty much all fluids besides fuel is now in the car. Oil is in the car. I've actually got the engine to crank over, so the engine cranks. The ECU is not hooked up, so I haven't been able to start it. Hopefully that happens today. Coolant is in it. Just got to obviously start it, warm it up to bleed out the air. Overflow has nothing in it right now. Power steering has fluid in it, so once it starts, I'll have to just check that. But like I said before, there's been a ton of different random small issues that I've been trying to sort out. And unfortunately, like I said, every single time I've been here, I haven't been able to really complete anything. So it hasn't really been worth filming any of it, which kind of sucked, because I know in the beginning of this build I wanted to film everything and have a real detailed video showing the swap. Most of this was all pretty much straightforward anyway. There wasn't any customizing I needed to do besides just extending the alternator and AC harness, which I ended up just cutting the full length of the harness off my white car at home, and then I stripped all of the loom off of it, and I soldered and heat shrunk the harness to make it longer. Same with obviously this connector here, and then these 3 wires right here are for the AC, which I have the connector right here for it. So that will go on Once I know it's running, I'll put that on. That's not a big deal, just a wire. I just didn't have the connector with me, so I couldn't do it at the same time. But luckily it's right here up on top, so it's easy to reach. Once we're underneath, I'll show you too. Matt and I got the axles in, front and rear. They're all tight. I just need to make the indent right here on the axle nut so they don't come loose. And then the exhaust, I'll show you guys underneath the car. But the exhaust is a HKS carbon muffler, 3-inch stainless exhaust with the titanium tip burnt. I was going on the fence of the titanium tip, but I'm like, this is the JDM powertrain. It's my JDM dream car. When I think of a JDM, like 90s car, early 2000s, I think of a burnt tip. So I needed to go with the burnt tip. And then carbon fiber is kind of just the subtle detail of what this car is going to have. There's just subtle things that will be carbon fiber. And then obviously it'll be all wrapped or painted. But there's going to be subtle pieces on the car, including now the muffler, that are carbon fiber. Also, I got the battery situation all sorted out. I got a new battery shutoff, just the tried and true one that just sticks right in here like a key. And you twist it and it powers on. Twist it, powers off. I already tested that when I went to go crank the car, and that works fine. I got my lug nuts for the car right there. And pretty much today, we're just going to be wiring up the gauges because I have an oil pressure, an oil temperature sensor, and then I have the air fuel ratio gauge as well. So the oil pressure and sensor is just one gauge. It has like the digital like analog style for one of them, and then it has like a digital readout in the center for the other. I can't remember which one is which, but it'll show it on the box. And then I just have the typical AEM wideband. So you can see the downpipe is in there too. I only wrapped the downpipe in the firewall section of it just because, one, I ran out of wrap, but two, it's really only the firewall that needed the additional heat protection. But fluids also, the tranny and diff are also full with fluid as well. So now basically what I've got going on the inside is that I just need to run the wires for the gauges, well, for the sensors into the cabin of the car. So I have a clothes hanger over there. You can't really see because it's dark, but clothes hanger going through the grommet that I have the battery power wire going through, that I just need to lift the car back up. I'm going to feed the wires through, hopefully fit all three of them through that small grommet with that power cable, and then we will be working on the inside of the car to wire up the gauges. I know I have to look at the wiring diagram for them, but I know I have to tap into a power, like a switched on power. So I'm probably just going to tap into the radio power, since that is a switched power, and then just wire it like that. This is also the plus to not having the dash or any of the interior in yet. That one, I can hide the wires really nice so they're not just hanging out all over the place, and then two, because all of the harness is easy to reach. So that's really nice. So like I said, I'm going to bring it up, start feeding those wires through, which is not going to be fun. Hopefully they all fit through. And then I will catch up with you guys once I hopefully have all three inside the car. Okay, so got all the gauges wired. Went down through there, goes underneath the brake booster, comes out near the clutch pedal in here. I just semi-routed all the wires for now. I have the oil pressure and temp right here, air fuel right there, hooked up the gauge cluster just for now. And if I grab the key, both gauges turn on. The cluster speedo is up for some reason. Don't know why. TAC is up. All of them are kind of randomly in different areas. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure if maybe just because it hasn't run, it just needs to calibrate or something. I'm not sure. But once I get it running, I'll see what ends up happening with that. But now, I think I'm pretty much ready to plug the ECU in over there and put some fuel in it, see if the fuel pump turns on. Because I think the fuel pump, obviously I think the fuel pump is controlled through the ECU, which is why I'm able to crank it and I don't hear a fuel pump go. So before I do that, I'm going to put some gas in it, plug that in, and then we'll see if the fuel pump turns on. Alright, so what you guys saw was actually about a week ago now. So I wired up those gauges. They actually turned on. The cluster turns on when I turn the key. But unfortunately, the fuel pump does not turn on. So I was not able to get it to start that night. It started getting late, so I didn't pick up the camera, didn't film anything, and like I said, it's been about a week. I was up in Vermont for 5 days, so that took a big chunk out of last week. So I was also waiting for iWire to get back to me about some wiring for what looks like to be a fuel pump controller. I was waiting for that. They got back to me today, so later on I'm going to take a look at that again. But for right now, what we're going to do is that I brought the Volk TEs that were on my ISF. I brought them over to work. I flipped the tires on them because they had a little bit of inner edge wear from the typical IS tire wear. And today, we're going to be making this thing be an actual roller. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to just hand tight every piece of suspension. We're going to put the wheels on, and then I'm going to drop the weight down on it, and then I'm going to do a final tighten down of everything just so I know it's all tight at ride height. And then we'll also kind of do a base set of the ride height as well, because I don't know what the rear is at, I don't know what the front is at. So we're going to go through, tighten all the suspension in the back, same with the front. These are already tight. We got to do front control arm, the strut, and then also those ball joints, end links. Basically everything needs to be gone through. So I'm going to go grab the wheels out of my truck, and then I'm going to just start hand tightening everything, just so I could get the weight of the vehicle on it. Alright, so I got the wheels on, and I used Matt and I's technique of stacking wheels and putting the weight of the car down on it. So now it's off the lift right now, it's on just the full weight of the car. I crawled underneath, I tightened up all the suspension. This is going to be the ride height for now. It's not 100% finalized, but this is what it's going to be close to this. It's like 2.5 to 3 inches, and I actually can't go any lower because the strut, I don't know if it'll focus, yeah, but the lower portion of the strut is going to start contacting the axle boot. And then also with the rear, I had to raise the rear about 2 inches because the lateral link angle was extremely angled up, and the axle was getting fairly close to the subframe. So really can't go much lower in the rear as well. So that's what it's going to be for now, until eventually I want to try and get the WiseFab knuckle kit for front and rear, which is a 2-inch drop knuckle, so I can adjust the suspension from there. But now it looks like I'll be able to jump it. Me and Matt were talking about jumping it. And then same with this side. Got the wheels on this side. You know, once the full kit is on, maybe the wheel gap won't look too bad, but the flushness of these wheels with no spacers is like perfect. So it's like just in the fender just a little bit, and same with the front, it's just in the fender as well. So they literally fit perfect, no spacers. Alright, so we're fast forward about 3-4 hours. So I figured out what the problem was with the fuel pump not turning on. There is a set of 3 relays that mount over here on the inside that I didn't install, and that I actually got rid of with the black coupe. I had to go home and grab the set out of the white parts car that I have, and I plugged those in, and if I grab the key and turn it, I don't know if you guys could hear it, but the fuel pump turns on. So unfortunately I won't be able to show you guys the first start because Matt and I got it running last night, but I can fire it up right now for you. I still haven't completely warmed it up, bled the coolant. I only ran it a couple times, but now just off camera I got the dashboard in and I got the HVAC hooked up so I can turn on the heat to make sure it's blowing warm. So let me open up the bay door and I will get this thing started. we go. Just like that, she starts up and idles. Alright, like you guys just saw, it's running and idling. It's actually been like a week since that last clip that you guys just saw. I took a little bit of a break, went up to Vermont for a little while. Now I'm back, and the reason why I ended the clip fairly quickly was because the upper radiator hose, this one right here, this area, when the coolant was warming up and expanding the hose, it started getting, actually it was almost touching the alternator pulley. So I already knew that was a problem. I already trimmed this hose back, but it was still contacting, and unfortunately, since it was full of coolant, I would have needed to drain the radiator and then take that radiator hose off, trim it. So today I just did that. It's actually warm to the touch because I actually just got it fully up to operating temperature. The heat is blowing warm. So now I know that the coolant system for the most part is bled. I won't know for sure until I plug the cluster in and actually be able to see the temperature gauge. But I had to trim it back even more. I trimmed like another like ½ inch off this hose. So now it has a good probably 1/3 of an inch of clearance. And then the power steering nut holding the pulley on was a little bit close. So I loosened that clamp and just pulled the hose that way a little bit so it's more towards the radiator shroud. But now it's up to operating temp. This is hot and it's expanded and it's not anywhere near touching. So now that's good. I don't need to worry about that rubbing through. My Impreza drift car that had a WRX swap in it actually had the same problem, and it started wearing into it from the pulley. Never had a leak, but it started wearing into it. And then off camera, what I did the other day, fast when I was up here, I got the upper portion of the dash installed. So what I did today is actually I wired the radio, and I got all that mounted. I got the HVAC system mounted, and I got this upper cubby piece, which is actually brand new from Subaru, because I guess these parts like to crack and like shatter, because that's literally what happened to the last one. So I got those through Subaru. All this is screwed in. If I plug the battery in and I turn the key and everything powers up. The HVAC works fine. And now what I was doing, which you won't be able to see, well maybe you can, this controller right here, that you can't really see because it's too dark, that controller right there, that one works the HKS turbo timer that I have, that is kind of old technology, something that you don't really need, but my 04 STI that I had way back in 2011, I had the same HKS turbo timer installed on that. So just for nostalgia, I want it in this again, just because it brings me back to back pretty much when I first started modifying cars. And then for the center diff controller, the computer for that is back there. The knob used to just come over here to the center console and have like the knob right over here. It looked a little out of place, so what I did is actually I routed the wire up and over, and right now I just have it right here, but it's going to go right here in the switch panels that has like the OEM fog light and cruise control button, which is over here. So that right there, that's going to be for the center diff controller. I actually had to hollow out that whole like fake button in order for the knob to fit. So that will go in, and then that'll be nice out of the way. I have a new center console piece, well not new, I have another center console piece at home that I cleaned up, just so I don't have that hole there anymore. All I need to do for the diff controller and the turbo timer is I just need to rewire it back into this e-brake switch right here, which this will normally go right around here for the e-brake switch. This wire coming off of it was already meant for the diff controller, which is right here, but now I have this one right here that will also come from this side, and it came with extra wiring, so I can tap right into it. So I just need to hook those up And besides that, obviously it'll just be plugging in the turbo timer itself. So I have that, and this is pretty much all set for now. So I can't really put any more of the interior together, not until I get the carpet, because like I can't put the center console in because the carpet goes underneath it. Same with like the lower kick panel areas. I could probably put the glove box in. That probably won't get in the way. But I can't put the driver's side kick panel piece that has those switches over here. Can't put that in until I get the cluster in, and I get the cluster surround / gauge pod in, because I have all the wires for the gauges just chilling out too. For some reason, the gauges, well, I should say the cluster, like right now it's off and they're just reading really weirdly. When I had it running, the RPM wasn't working. I put about 6 gallons into it, so that's just about accurate. Coolant temp, I wasn't really sure. I never ran it long enough to see if that would work, but for some reason the miles per hour is up at like 15, and I don't know why, and RPM wasn't working. So it worked before. I don't know why it's not working now. These connectors are a little weird looking. They're like half connectors. They're like real old style connectors, so maybe just a couple of them aren't touching. I'm not really sure. I haven't really diagged any of that yet. I really just wanted to make sure it was running, and make sure that the coolant system was bled, which is what I just finished. And then for the ride height issue that I had, I've been talking back and forth with ISC. They said that they should have a shorter strut for the front of this that will actually then lower. I'll be able to lower the car more in the front. I can lower the back more. That wasn't the issue. I actually raised the back about 2 inches. Well, yeah, about 2 inches to match the front. Since that ISC should be able to get me a smaller strut for the front, I could then lower the back to match. This last time I was running it, I realized that the return for the fuel on both sides is a little wet, so I'll probably have to just replace those clamps. Those are just cheap clamps. I'm surprised actually this one's not leaking, but just the return on both sides is leaking, so I'll just get a new clamp for both of those, and that'll be sorted out. Other than that, there's no fluid leaks. Everything seems good, and I'm super happy with that. Alright, so like you guys just saw, that return line for the fuel system is leaking. I still haven't bought any clamps for it. It's been about a week since that last portion of the video. I'm sorry that this video has been very, very drawn out, I guess I'll say. For you guys it hasn't, but for me it's been a couple weeks, just because I'm trying to get up to the shop whenever I can. Also, not only that, but there's been multiple days until today, when I'm going to do a recap, that everything has been fighting me, just like the last video when I was putting the engine bay together. I'll come up here for a couple hours and I'll get like one thing installed and something else struggles, or I put one thing together and I end up having to take it apart because there's something else that didn't go right or something else that I forgot. So it's like, I'll show you the interior right now. It's been pretty much 1 step forward, 2 step back for the whole interior so far. But I'm happy to say that for the most part, I'll say probably 80% of the interior is now in, and I'll show you what seats that I ended up going with. So I don't know if you guys will recognize these seats, but if you own a Subaru BRZ or an FRS, these will look familiar, because these are actually my stock BRZ seats that I actually modified to fit in the coupe. So also got the center console in. I have the whole radio surround. I just finished putting this trim piece in. I'm sorry that you can't really see. Let me get a light. So as you can see, I got the center console and the shift bezel and everything in. Got that trim surround around the radio and HVAC now. Cluster and gauges are in. Just I have these vents, the outer vents at home. Oh, and also I've got the carpet pretty much in. There's still some just trimming and stuff in the back and on that side in the kick panel area that I need to still do. This was not universal. This was a replacement carpet through Zealous Interiors. There was some trimming and stuff I needed to do. I needed to cut the holes for like the seat bolts and stuff. But for the most part, it fits pretty good. And for what you can at least see out of the whole carpet, it fits good, it looks good. But so the problem that I had the other day when I was up here, when I was going to try and film, was when I was putting the interior back together, I needed to put, obviously, I got the cluster in, went to go wire these gauges up, and what I ended up doing was pulling one of the connectors out of the harness, well, pulling the two terminals out of the connector for the oil temp portion of this sensor. So I lost that connector piece. I was just going to put it back together. Lost that piece somewhere in the interior when the interior was completely apart. Don't understand how I lost it, but I couldn't find it. I searched literally for almost 2 hours. I couldn't find that one little connector. Luckily on GlowShift's site, you can actually buy that whole harness for the one that I lost the connector, and it was only a couple bucks. So I ordered that. Once that comes in, I'll just cut the harness and I'll just splice it into the harness I already have wired, and then that will be fine. So that day was kind of a waste, and then the last time I was here, I kind of just put my head down and got the carpet, center console, pretty much everything else wired up and installed, obviously off camera, but I just needed a good solid, maybe like, I think I was up here for 4 hours, a good solid 3 or 4 hours of just putting everything together, because all of the other days I was up here, it was just an absolute waste. And then also what I ended up doing was that this knob right here is actually my center diff control. When the previous owner had it drilled right here in the center console, and I didn't really like it kind of just like chilling right there, it looked a little off, and plus I wanted this to stay nice and like original. So I was able to feed the wiring across, and luckily it had enough room for me to mount it over here. I had to trim one of these empty slots quite a bit in order to get the dial right there to fit, but I got it to fit. It looks good. Now it's kind of like more out of the way. I got the turbo timer set up down there. I drilled a hole behind here for the harness to go through, and now it's just attached right there. Out of this right now might look like it's all scratched up, but it's actually just really dusty. Matt was in here painting some cabinets or something, so everything got all dusty. But all this will clean right up. Like all this right here, all that down there will clean up. This is actually a new piece. This is a new piece. This is a new piece. There's a lot of, I wish I was able to get the shift bezel, this piece, and I wish I was able to get the console all new, but those were all discontinued. Same with the glove box and a couple other things. I basically, out of the whole interior, I bought as many new OEM pieces as I could. But unfortunately, a lot of things are now just discontinued. And then one other thing, of course, that I forgot again today, I forgot last time and I forgot today, to bring my new steering wheel up so I can test fit that. If I really don't want to have to use the quick release, so I'm hoping I'll be able to just take this off and just use the adapter, just the hub adapter for it, because I don't need it to be a quick release in this, nor do I really need the extra like length that it gives me. Right now with the aftermarket wheel that it has it real close to me, and in my seating position it's very, very uncomfortable. I'm super happy with how the interior came together. This is actually exactly how I imagined it, and I'm glad I'm able to use the BRZ seats because they're super comfortable, and I like that they're Alcantara and they're leather. What I actually ended up doing is, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I'm still able to use the BRZ's slider on them, which was super nice. I ended up just grinding off the 4 mounting spots. I'll show you in the garbage. I ended up grinding off the mounting bases for the seat. So this is like one of the front ones, and then the front has another one like this, and then the rears look like this on the slider because the bolt went through this area. All I did was I just ground all the rivets down on them, and I punched the rivets through the sliders, and then the holes that the rivets originally go through, you just put bolts through, and you bolt it into like a universal, or like a GC racing seat plate bracket. And the two front ones bolted in no problem. The rear I had to drill some new holes in the plate itself for just the bolts to go through. But that didn't take too long. Once I did the driver's seat, the passenger side was super easy, just because I already knew what I needed to do. And like they're super sturdy. They're not going anywhere. It's pretty much just like if you had a factory seat in there, like if you threw like an STI seat or something in there. But they're black, red stitching. They match my shift boot and the e-brake boot that I have. It's actually gonna match the steering wheel that I got. I think it's super nice. It's coming together. The body work probably shouldn't take too long. At least I hope that the body work doesn't take too long. And then obviously once the body work's done, get it to all be one color, and this thing's gonna be great. I can't wait to actually be able to drive this thing. Alright, so that's going to be it for this episode. I'm sorry I kind of like jumped around a lot. A lot of things got done, but off camera. But like I said, this whole episode for me, it fought me the entire way. And unfortunately, for anything else that's going to be coming up mechanically wise, besides bodywork, I feel like it's going to be the same way. Because there's just a lot of small things that I go to try and do, and it's either just not worth filming or it ends up fighting me. So probably the next episode that you guys will see is going to be probably the start of the bodywork. So until then, don't forget to give me a subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.